Can you hear, can you hear, can you hear my voice? Coming through, coming through, coming through the noise. I'm floating through outer space. I'm lost and I can't find a way. Oh, all the lights going dark and my hopes destroyed. Help me, is anybody there?
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn? Hey, 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 hey. This ain't no game. Sway the remix god. Hey, 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 hey.
What's your name?
My name is Mike Sargent.
Neel Gouveia.
My name is Ilya Swatzburg.
What's your favorite cooking spice?
Pretty much cook everything with adobo.
That would be, I said garlic. It's not very exciting, but there it is.
Garlic.
When you hear the phrase, united we stand, divided we fall, what is the first thought that pops in your mind?
It's kind of hokey, but I do think of the nation of our society, particularly America.
The first thing that comes to my mind is when we allow our differences to take over from our commonalities.
Platitude.
Upon further reflection, what does that phrase mean to you?
Deeper into that, I realized that as humans, our relationships with each other, it's really fragile and it's sensitive, and at any given moment, it can be triggered and unravel rather quickly. So that, yeah.
Well, it's a question for me. It's I'm kind of on, I think, because I represent the Libertarian Party. I'm a libertarian activist. So it's a bit of a interesting question for us, because I often think in terms of, political philosophy, and the phrase "united we stand, divided we fall" can really be a kind of a communal obligation where we all are responsible for each other, and as libertarians we kind of resist that we should be individuals who operate by ourselves and live our own lives and try to find meaning in our own lives. But I do think that ultimately we are, united we stand, divided we fall. But in a very nuanced way, where we have to stand up for the rights of each other. We have to respect each other. But we don't necessarily have to, believe one-to-one with what our neighbor believes, or to love them as we just need to respect them.
Okay, phrases like that, things that are memes or cliches, when you're young, I think they sound like cliches. They sound like some phrase that people say, or it's a t-shirt, a slogan. But as you get older, you realize that they are actually really deep pieces of wisdom.
Separation of church and state. Good idea. But is it an honest idea? I mean, is it realistic to expect a religious politician to not be influenced by their faith? And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that if we just be honest, let's be honest. As a nation, are we being dishonest about separation of church and state, or are we successfully doing it?
It's not helpful, in my opinion, to interpret that in this kind of maximal cultural way. I think it's very important that separation of church and state is an extremely important doctrine that we have to abide by. But we have to apply it in the way that it's supposed to, which is that the government is not supposed to be in its policy enmeshed with religious affairs. In terms of what is motivating elected officials, I think, religion is a huge source of morality. And if that's their morality or the constituents' morality, that is perfectly valid. And the kinds of ideologies that inform secular morality could be just as, faith-based or just as dogmatic. And it really shouldn't matter, especially to the government, where those aspects of morality come from. So in fact, I think if you really respected the separation of church and state, you shouldn't even be asking the question of whether these are religiously motivated ethics. Every policy, because we all come to the public sphere and to government and to policy from a perspective that we all subscribe to the idea that there's this separation of church and state, and that we all come together, that everyone has to deal generally with how we deal with each other and our fellow man, and what is the proper role of government, that we all have to evaluate each policy objectively in terms of what are we accomplishing, whether it violates anyone's rights. But we shouldn't be, I think, questioning the sincerity or the theological aspect of how people get there.
Good point.
To me, separation of church and state is a great idea because, your beliefs should not influence, and affect others, and the government should be able to encompass, everybody's needs. But that being said, separation of church and state is a concept that we maybe, let's say there was a time where church was more powerful and had a greater influence on the nation than money. But I disagree, because church existed during slavery, but slavery existed because money, wealth. If you were wealthy, you had slaves. That was part of wealthy living. And so separation between church and state sounds good, but it sounds more like, let's not have any morals. It's not about ethics. It's not about morals. Let's get rid of that. Let's just have state. And it should be separation of economy and state, or finance and state, or, whatever word you want to use for money. But church and state, I think it's an ideal, and it's a good idea.
I think overall we've been pretty successful with a pretty decent level of separation of church and state. When it comes down to it, the United States was built on a Judeo-Christian culture, and that there's nowhere around that. That's what defined our history as a Judeo-Christian values. So we have to accept that. That's been established. But when it comes to politicians, we can't expect, honestly, a politician to be fully committed to that separation of church and state when it conflicts a little bit with their own personal views. Yeah, they're there to serve the people, but at the end of the day, they're still human as well. And there's something more to us than just hearing what's going on. It's more than just politics. There is like another level of being that's above us. So when it comes to expecting politicians, I don't think it's realistic that you can really expect them to have that complete unbiased view of separation of church and state.
I work with TFK TWA, an academic program that pairs foster kids with internships and animal rescue. They get to learn about a business and help animals at the same time. These kids soon will be getting their own apartments as young adults. What kitchen tool or cooking advice would you give them?
I definitely say, definitely get yourself, if not a cookbook, I mean, you can do it all online. Definitely teach yourself some basics of cooking, you know, find out like the things that your favorite foods, learn how to cook them. And I also say, cook in bulk, cook for like a couple days. Like even if you don't come back tomorrow, it'll be there 2 days from now. When you eat something else on Wednesday, you can eat that on Friday. So, two, I think definitely invest in some good cooking ware.
You should get a microwave, but there's so much stuff you could do with it. Like you could steam vegetables.
A kitchen tool that I would definitely give these foster kids is a French press coffee maker. So it's one of these really cool devices where you get the grinded coffee, you pour it in, and then you pour your hot water, let it like sit there for a bit, and then you actually push the press down and it brews the coffee, and then you get a really amazing cup of coffee that pretty much rivals any Starbucks cup out there. And it's also going to save you money as well too.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Metropolitan Republican Club's webinar series. My name is Krysia Lenzo, and on behalf of the Met Club, we are so happy that you've joined us this evening. I also wanted to give a brief shout out to Sebastian, who is our social media director on our board. It is Sebastian's birthday, so we're so thankful to him. He's my Polish partner in crime, so a big stolat to Sebastian. And without further ado, I'm happy to welcome Kathryn Rooney Vera. Kathryn is head of global macroeconomic research and investment strategy at Baltic Capital Markets. She is responsible for the development of global investment recommendations for Baltic's clients, including high net worth individuals and family offices. Kathryn is a high frequency guest on Bloomberg, CNN, CNBC, Fox Business, and Fox News. And we are so happy that she's joining us tonight. She's going to tell us all about how to navigate through these choppy markets and what to expect with the reopening of the economy. And many states have already opened, so how we should all perceive that. So Kathryn, welcome.
Thank you very much, Krysia.
Of course. So the Dow today, it's been a 2-day streak going over 500 points. And, you know, for many, that seems like a great sign. You know, investors are looking to reopen the market. And what do you think about this? And should we consider this a bullish case?
Well, it is a bullish case because the sentiment of the U.S. consumer, which is first and foremost of utmost importance for the U.S. economy, is bullish. So that's a good thing. One thing, Krysia, that I've been looking for to answer this question, which is really the biggest question there is, this disconnect between markets and the economy. Why does it exist? And is this trend going to continue? And what I've thought is, let's think about it. We're in the throes of a massive recession where a U.S. economy driven, 3/4 of which is driven by consumption, specifically the consumption of services, sees that consumption of services virtually completely shut down. And it's still the case, even though we are reopening and in the beginning of the process of reopening, it's still virtually shut down. So we are still in the throes of recession in a consumption-driven economy. With that, we've seen the markets rally. You said the Dow is up, 5% in the past week? It's been up 35%, Krysia, since the bottom of the markets, 35%. As of today, end of the close, we are only 9 percentage points from all-time record highs. So I think it's a really good question. This disconnect, why does it exist and is it valid? And the way I've answered that question is with this observation. Something has to give, okay? So you have multiples, which are prices over earnings. So S&P 500 has prices of the companies. Prices have been shooting higher. That causes the multiple, which is prices over earnings, to be far greater than it historically has been. So for those who are familiar with this multiple, it's called the PE multiple. We're currently at 22 times. That means that prices overwhelm earnings by 22 times. The historical average over the past, let's call it 50 years, has been about 16.5 times. So you have multiples that seem to show that the markets are very rich, and you have consumer confidence through the floor. So my thought has been, something has to give. Either you have multiples collapse precipitated by a drop in prices in the equity markets, or you have like a rocket launch of consumer confidence in the very near term in a magnitude of which we have never seen before. So it has to be one of those two. It seems like right now, in the direction we're going, it's the latter and not the former, and that's phenomenal.
Good morning and welcome to First Friday. I'm Councilmember Ben Kallos. This is a tradition we've done since I have been an elected official, and even actually before then. When the pandemic started, we've moved this whole process online. And for those who don't already know, this is being recorded. It is also, and will be pasted online. It was also being streamed on Facebook. If you need individual personal attention, or you have something you'd prefer not to have the entire world know about, please feel free to email me, bkallos@benkallos.com. Now call on DJ Brenda Black, and I think she was on the Zoom last night, and so thank you for joining us back to back.
Hello, thank you for having me. I really appreciate that you're doing these things online. And I think one of the silver linings of COVID would be that this is now something that is available to constituents. And I think it should continue, these online forums, even after the pandemic is over. I have one other thing I'd like to say, if I may, really quickly.
Of course.
I completely disagree with police corruption and police brutality, but I think it's important that we remember that so many of these people, they're New Yorkers too, and they're humans. They're people under a lot of intense pressure. I mean, the video of the cop getting hit and run and thrown in the air, even thinking about it now makes me sick to my stomach. I know people who are cops, and they're good people, and they're in this horrible position. I think that what we need to do, I think the biggest problem with the police department is like if one of them wants to out a bad one, they suffer. We should be encouraging them to be, like, the cops should be the first one to out a bad cop. But when they do, it seems as if they don't get support. And I support everyone, but just just to put it out there, just to have another opinion out there, I think, and I'm a Christian, so I feel like it's very important to me to, if someone's my enemy, to love them and try and come together and not hate them. And I think some of the narrative is counterproductive, because so many of these cops are our neighbors, they're our friends, you know? So I think we have to keep that in mind when we're dealing with this issue, and remember, these are fellow human beings, and the cops aren't above us. We can't be judging them above, like they're gods, to make the right decision all the time. So I just wanted to add that, because I'm sure everyone here knows a good cop.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing your lived experience. And I would join you in praising our police in the 19th precinct. And what you're talking about, if you take a look at the Medium piece, I think you and I are very close. One of the issues is the blue wall of silence, which you've indicated. And I think that the reason that there is a blue wall of silence is because of 50A. And what 50A does is it makes things private when people do something wrong. And if that was public information, then I hope that the knowledge that their body cameras would be visible and that their disciplinary records would be visible would be something that would change their behavior. And I know as an elected official, and what I'll say is I know a couple of, I know I can count the good elected officials on both hands, maybe. There are a lot of bad elected officials out there, a lot. And as somebody who's forced to work with a lot of the bad elected officials, what is helpful to me is the fact that there's transparency. And I can say to them, like, you can do that, but if you do that, like, it's going to be public and it's going to be bad. And so I am in a different power position than police officers are. And I think that, again, if you look at the medium piece, this isn't about the good police officers who are out there, which is a majority of them. And I just also want to note, a lot of the work that we've been doing in the office comes from First Friday. Somebody mentioned wanting to have streets converted so that people can dine there. We did the letter. That's now going to be policy starting June 20th. We've had folks talk about doing one-way sidewalks. That's something that we've been communicated to the administration and trying to see how we can do it once folks once we have seen it's one of the things that we're looking into. And just so much. We couldn't do this without you. So I want to thank the 20 or so folks who participated over the course of this morning. And I hope to see you in the coming months. So thank you very much. Have a great weekend and have a great month.
Thank you. And thank you to all the panel. And thank you to my fellow citizens for participating in making our neighborhood and our city a great place.
You're wrong.
You're wrong. Hey, look, a dog.
They want us to follow.
Look, it's a disco dance.
Let's stop fighting and disco dance.
Okay.
Thanks, dog, for bringing us.
point, good. Let's go.